إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. قال جل وعلا إنما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. My brothers and sisters, I would like to remind myself and you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the life of this world is nothing but deception. And the ayah before that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. And He said that every living being will taste death. I want to remind you and myself that the shapes of this dunya, the structures of this dunya, the signs of this dunya, which we see or we consider to be signs of success, are actually signs of failure. And the signs that we see to be signs of failure are actually signs of success. In the hadith relating to the Dajjal, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the Dajjal will show a picture of Jannah, but that will actually be Jahannam. Which will actually be Jannah. And I remind myself and you that we don't have to wait for the Dajjal to know this. That is the reality of this dunya. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Nabi after Nabi after Nabi to explain and to open our eyes to this reality. That the ashkal, the frames of reference of this dunya are actually the opposite of whatever they appear to be. The frame of reference of this dunya of success, the frame of reference of success is wealth, it's power. More than wealth, it's power. Wealth is a means of getting power. So wealth and power. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us and showed us the example of the Pharaoh of Egypt. Those of you who have been to Egypt, and if you have been to the Valley of the Kings, and if you have seen the Pyramid of Cheops, that is one of two man-made objects that is visible from outer space. Only two things visible on the earth actually from outer space. One is the Great Wall of China and the other one is this Pyramid of Cheops, the big pyramid. Imagine the power of a kingdom which can produce something that big. That is a tomb after all. They didn't live in it. So imagine what the power of the king and what the wealth of that kingdom and dynasty would have been, which could create something like the Pyramid of Cheops. Where is it today? What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show us as the reality of that? Is that a framework or model of success? What is more of a model of failure than a little boy being thrown into a dark well by his own brothers in order to be killed? And then, it doesn't end there. And then, this little boy is rescued from the well and sold into slavery. What is a bigger model of failure and disgrace than to be sold into slavery? And on top of that, this boy, when he grows up, he is then thrown into prison for a crime that he did not commit. Yes? He didn't commit any crime, but he was thrown into prison. And he stayed in this prison for years, not months and weeks. For years. What is a bigger model of failure than that? And the name of that boy is? You will not take the name of the boy without saying alayhi salam if you are Muslim. One of the Anbiya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a whole surah. The entire surah Yusuf is about Yusuf alayhi salam. A model of success of the world which leads in the hellfire, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that the Firaun and his people are shown the hellfire in the morning and in the evening. That is one of the dalail in the Quran about azab in the qabr. The greatest framework of success. Imagine the wealth of that kingdom. Imagine the sheer raw power of a king who can decree that the sons of a whole people, a whole nation should be slaughtered, and that their daughters must be kept alive so that they can be used as slaves. What must be the power of that king? Today, it's not that these things are not happening. Today also there are wars, and today also, but nobody, no head of state in the world today can even dare to give a command like that openly. They have to build all sorts of media, and they have to build all sorts of public opinion in the favor of what they are doing, and they have to give it good names. Behind the curtain of which they perpetrate oppression. But nobody today has the power to actually give an open command like that. Kill their boys. And Allah knows best how many of them died, but some of the scholars have written that 70,000 of them were slaughtered. Can you believe that? For us, these are numbers. 70,000 children. Can you imagine? And they can do nothing. They can do absolutely nothing to prevent that. And then, this Rabb of ours, subhanAllah, I tell you, we don't think. We should think. Keep on asking this question. What is the question to ask? Why? 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 Until the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely fills us, and we become blind to everything except the glory of Allah. In the middle of that scenario, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees for a boy to be born. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives wahi to his mother and tells her, when you fear for your son's life, what do? Throw him in the river. When you fear for your son's life, throw him in the Nile. Ajib. This looks like the framework of safety to you. This is our Rabb. The opposite, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows that all the frameworks in your mind, mata'ul ghurur, figments of your imagination. You imagine that I get success because of this. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Success comes if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep a person on his throne and make him zalil. He will not remove him he will not take him away from the throne. In his throne, he becomes the laughing stock of the world. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when you fear for the danger, when you fear for the life of your son, throw him in the river. And then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? What does our mental framework say? If you want to save somebody, keep him away from the one who is after his life, yes? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes this child to go, not just float and be accidentally found. He causes him to be floated into the palace of Firaun. And then he is picked up from the river by the wife of Firaun, radiyallahu anha. And then our mental framework says, all right, even if all this happened, well, let it be that they don't recognize. But no, this is not our Rabb. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes the Firaun is holding this little baby, newborn baby. He calls the priests. He says, see what we found. The priest says, this is the one we were looking for. You killed all those 70,000 for nothing. This is the one. This is the one for whom we killed all of them. Yes? Recognized. No deception. Allah Jalla wa Ala wants to prove that Allah doesn't have to deceive anybody to save somebody. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have to deceive anybody to save anybody. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to save, He turns the one who is the murderer into the one who becomes the savior of that person. It was the mashiach of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Musa alayhi salam would become the Nabi of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this wahi and told his mother this before she put him into the river. She said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we'll return your son to you and he will make him a Nabi. So the Firaun recognizes, said, this is the one, so kill him. Imagine, the Pharaoh of Egypt is standing on the beautiful marble floor of his palace, holding this baby, and to kill this baby, what does he need to do? He needs to drop it. Khalas, just drop. But can the Firaun drop? Can the Firaun hold? Can the Firaun or you or I do anything except by the hukum of Allah? Can we take one breath and be sure that we can exhale? Can we exhale and be sure that the next breath is there for us to inhale? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees that I am not destined to inhale my next breath, does it mean that the air has finished? Air has not finished. Air for me has finished. And the Firaun, not only does the Firaun become the protector of Musa alayhi salam, but Musa alayhi salam becomes the source of income for his whole family. Because now he is sent back to his mother, not as her son, but as a prince of the dynasty of Firaun. So obviously if you are a prince of the dynasty of Firaun, and you, the mother of Musa, is feeding the prince of the dynasty of Firaun, then Firaun will give you not in keeping with what you need, but in keeping with his own majesty. So what the Firaun gives is not enough to feed only the mother of Musa, but it is enough to feed the whole clan of Musa. Eh? Ajib, the ashkal of this dunya. Never allow them to deceive you. Never allow them to deceive you. Go in the world and look and see, here is this fellow who is playing on natak, he is doing on drama, he thinks, oh, I'm a king. The other fellow is saying, oh, I'm a CEO of a company. I'm country manager of GE, and he thinks he manages the whole country. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Even the title is country manager. He cannot even manage what is inside his own belly. Tell him to try do that. Self-made man. Tell you, women are smart. I have never heard of somebody saying self-made woman. But self-made man. Self-made man. You have no control even over what is in your belly. When you got to go, yeah? Yes. And you are self-made man. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Something which came out of nothing. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, has he forgotten the time that he was not even something mentioned? And even after a child is born, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep your children safe, and those who don't have children and want children, may Allah give you good children. Sahih wa salim. But if a child is born and a few days later the child dies, what do you say? Who died? So and so's son. That thing doesn't even have a name even after it's born. It has no identity even after it's born. So and so's child died. So and so's child died. That doesn't even have an identity even after it is born. Only after some days when the name is given and aqiqah and this and that and the other, then it has a name. And even after that, for some time, if the child dies, nobody says Omar died or Abdullah died. He says so and so's son died. And this thing which has no identity, stands up in opposition to Allah, stands up in opposition to Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees something, and you say, oh, Allah wants this, but I also want. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. I'm not talking about the kuffar and the mushrikeen and the mulhideen and the atheists. I'm talking about the Muslim. I'm talking about the Muslim who claims to have iman on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but who refuses to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who picks and chooses what he will obey, and he leaves out the rest, and he forgot what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْدِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْدِ. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْدِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْدِ. You pick and choose what you will do. You pick and choose what you will do. He forgot. He picks and chooses what he will do. With respect to his ibadat, with respect to his aqaid, with respect to his akhlaq, with respect to his mu'amilat, with respect to his mu'ashirah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed how he should behave with his family. Allah decreed how he should behave with his wife and his and husband. Allah decreed what they must do with their children. Allah decreed what they must do in the mu'ashirah, in the community. Allah decreed what they must do if they are the imam or if they are the muqtadi. Allah decreed what they must do, how they must run their businesses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed what they should eat and what is halal and what is haram. Not because it benefits Allah, but it benefits them. And they say, no. Maybe you say it is halal, but I have to eat. And so if it is haram, I will eat. You say this way of doing business is haram, but I have to build a business. So I will take a loan and I will pay interest. And you say it is haram to abuse my wife or to mistreat her, but what can I do? I mean, the woman doesn't obey me, so after all, I have a boot for some reason. You will know the reason for the boot when you face Malakul Maut. Then you will understand the reason for the boot. Be very, very careful, especially with regard to the women. And that is the wasi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Very careful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala listens to the dua of the one who is helpless. And you may think you are, king in the house. But imagine, the dua of a muttaqi woman is either good for you or it will destroy you. It is either good for you or it will destroy you. Make sure it's always good for you. Make sure it's always good for you. Don't play games. Because her heart is connected with Allah. And if you abuse her, and if you play games, and she makes dua, or even if she does not make dua, because there are women, subhanAllah, may Allah bless them, even what they do, it will not come out of their mouths. They will not say, oh Allah, destroy my husband. They will not do that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have to wait for her to say it. Be very careful, especially with regard to the women, because you are qawamun over them. That does not mean you are the boss and you can walk all over them. It means that you will be questioned about them. That's all it means. It means that you will be questioned about them. They will not be questioned about you. You will be questioned about them. They will not be punished for what you did, but you will be punished for what they did and what you did for them. Be very careful, especially with regard to your women. All the men want to have 4 wives. That's one trouble multiplied by 3. You would be questioned for 1, now you will be questioned for 4. Yeah? I don't make haram what Allah has made halal. By all means, marry 4, no problem. But then be prepared. Your children, they are not just objects to be fed. They are not slot machines in which to put money. Their tarbiyah is your responsibility. Their tarbiyah is your responsibility. Connect them with Allah. Connect them with Allah. The people who work under you in your organizations, they are your responsibility. You will be questioned about them. The whole translations people do when they say the right hand possesses, and immediately you think of slave girls. And they say today, well, there is no jihad and there is no slave girls and there is no ghanima, therefore my right hand possesses nothing. No. Right hand possesses is anyone who is under your authority. You will be questioned about them. We have Muslims who employ servants. The servants don't pray. You go in the masjid to pray, your Muslim driver is sitting in the car. Doing what? Inviting the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on your head and on your car's head and on his own head. Invite him to pray, talk to him, give da'wah, your own people in your house, and if he does not listen, sack him. Get another driver. We are responsible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us. Everyone wants to be the Khalifa. Everyone wants to be the Imam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave a criterion for who not to select as the Imam or the Khalifa. He says the one who wants to be Imam, do not select him as Imam. He said the one who wants to be a leader, do not select him as a leader. Wanting to be Imam is a disqualification. Why? Because only an idiot will want to be an Imam. Only an idiot will want to actually be a leader of people, because that means he doesn't understand what that responsibility is. We must prepare to be leaders. We must prepare ourselves for leadership, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us that role. And these are the finer points of understanding. On the one hand, we must be prepared to lead, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent you and me in order to lead. But at the same time, we must not want to lead. Meaning that we must want to lead, or we must agree to lead only to please Allah, not for the perks or what comes with leadership. Not for my title, not for my rank, not for the flag on my car, not for whatever else that comes with leadership. None of that. I don't want any of that. Then you get leaders like Umar ibn al-Khattab, and then you get leaders like Umar ibn Abdul Aziz and other people. Did Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, was he hesitant about leading? Of course not. Of course not. But the clothes he wore, his izar had how many patches in it? And when they asked him, they sent Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu and some other Sahaba got together and they said, this looks bad. The Khalifatul Muslimin, Amirul Mu'mineen, is wearing clothes like this which are all patched all over the place. So they went to his daughter Hafsa radiallahu anha, Ummul Mu'mineen, and they gave her cloth and they said, please tell your father to make a thobe out of this, because it doesn't look nice that he is wearing patched clothes like this, but don't tell him our name. Don't tell him that we. So Hafsa radiallahu anha, she told her father. So Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu got very angry. He said to her, if you are not the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I would tell you what I want to tell you. Even though you are my daughter. He said, you are the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you are not the wife of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I would tell you what I want to tell you. He said, who told you to tell me this? She said, I have given my word, I will not tell you. Then he asked her. He said, tell me. He said, tell me, what was the way of your husband? What was the way of my Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam? And Hafsa radiallahu anha kept quiet. She knew the answer, he knew the answer. And then Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu said, he said, you know the reason I don't wear anything other than this? He said, I am afraid that if I do anything other than this, then I will not be allowed to be in the company of my two companions. He said, if I leave this sunnah, I am afraid that Allah will not permit me to be in the company of my two companions, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam wa Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. My brothers and sisters, I remind you and myself, these are not stories to be told for entertainment. These are stories to remind ourselves and to stop going in the direction that we are going. To make a U-turn and go in another direction. To change our lives and to understand innamal hayatu dunya illa mata'ul ghurur. This dunya will produce images and images and images before us. It is the shan of the Muslim, it is a sign of the Muslim that the Muslim sees with the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him. And if our knowledge cannot make us see through the deceptions of this dunya, then we must make tawbah. What knowledge is this that we cannot make us see through these curtains of this glare of this dunya, that we are dazzled by it, that we cannot see the truth behind it, that nothing matters. The shapes of success are actually the shapes of failure. And the signs of failure are actually signs of supreme success. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our hearts to His guidance. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our eyes to the reality of this world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show us the haqaiq of this world, so that we are not fooled and that we don't live our lives in blindness. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when we see Malakul Maut, it will not be a surprise for us. It will be a time and a day when we meet the one for whom we have been waiting. That we meet the one whose coming we have been awaiting with great anticipation, because that is the time when we will meet our Rabb. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make that last day of ours the best day of our lives, the last of our actions, the best of our actions, the last of our du'as, the best of our du'as. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to make tawbah before we die, to give us the tawfiq to make tawbah before we die, to accept our tawbah, to give us death as shuhada fi sabilillah, and to forgive us after we die and when we meet Him. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.